old son what Twitch is to find out.
Oh, you can ask him, he'll tell you what Twitch is. The new Skype, the YouTube stuff. All right. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the Soho House. The Adaptavist Group welcomes you to the Soho House. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Sam, part of the Adaptavist Group. I was initially a founder of the company VenITure, a solution partner in Germany, who were recently acquired by the Adaptavist Group, very proudly, back in November, end of November 23rd, actually, to be exact. Ever since we've been part of this great group of organizations. So we're very happy to welcome you here. Maybe Alex can start by introducing himself, saying a couple of words to, Mike can start by introducing himself, saying a couple of words to who he is, what he does, and No, we'll start with Mike.
Sounds good, since hopefully Mike's working. I'm Mike Maheu. I am the new position in the Adaptavist Group. I just started a new company called Venue DevOps. I spoke about it today at Unleashed a little bit. My background is technical, and I also was one of the founders of a company called Group that was acquired by Adaptavist in 2020. So I've been with Adaptavist Group for about 3 years. But yeah, excited to be here, excited to talk about DevOps. That's my main charter now with this new company, so it's exciting. Thanks.
It's really his passion.
Yes.
Would you like to continue?
Okay. So, good evening, everybody. I am Tina Behers. I'm the Vice President of Enterprise Agility. I am with the Aligned Agility Group. Was my company that was acquired by the Adaptavist Group in 2021. There's a theme here, right?
All being acquired.
By way of background, I've been working in strategy and agile, since the mid-90s. Started out working with XP back in the 90s, so pair programming, a lot of folks know it by that, and just sort of evolved the strategy with the agile into working with companies to help them put their strategy in place to transform their organizations into a more adaptive, welcoming workplace.
Thank you.
I think it's now my turn.
By the way, it was Alex's dirty 30 on Sunday. We can do a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Alex! So you can say all night long, dirty 30.
Perfect. Yeah, as you know now, my name is Alex. I'm 30 years old. Together with Sam, I founded VenITure and got acquired, so it's a theme. And basically, I focus on my background is the technical area, so Jira, Confluence Administrator, ITSM, Agile at Scale, a little bit DevOps, but not that nerdy in this area. Still, I'm very capable of all this technical stuff and also on the business side.
Thank you, Alex. So just a fun fact for everyone else to know about me. I love perfumes, so you can ask me anything about perfumes, what you like. So during the course of the event, evening, you might have someone walking past me. I'm like, "You wearing that perfume?" And they're like, "Creep." No, but it's nothing creepy. It's just it's one of my hobbies. I love perfumes, so I'm pretty into that. Yeah. It's something that not a lot of people know unless they work with me usually, right?
The secret sale will start in a few minutes, like an airplane, right?
Yes. So before we start this fireside chat discussion, where this is supposed to be an open format, so I welcome all of you to really, if you have a question, raise your hands. We'll try to keep this interactive and keep you guys involved, because I believe this is the way we can get the most out of it for everyone. Doing a Q&A at the end, we can add that too if we have the time, because the questions that we're getting into, they're quite in depth. So I believe if you have questions and you want to ask them right away, it'll be very good. And if you don't ask questions, I might pick you like in the school, right, in classes, and I might ask you some. No. Looking forward to that. So let's get started right away. And I have a first question going towards Tina first, and my question is, would you be able to tell me what the biggest challenges are that you see with customers facing when implementing Agile at scale?
So the biggest problems really depend on the approach that they take. One of the key failure points for any organization is not taking a holistic approach. Sadly, in this day and age, folks tend to think that tools are a silver bullet. They're not. If they go in with just coaching and training with no tools to help support that learning or the new process structure that goes along with Agile, things fail. So it really is a matter of taking a holistic approach. What's your strategy to make it happen across people, process, and the technology to support the change? So I think Alex probably has some add-ons there that you've seen from customers.
Yeah, additionally to what you are mentioning, I think very important is to have leadership and management buy-in. So what we see often is, at least in Germany or in DACH area, that
Maybe that would actually be something where you'd say there might be a difference between Americas and EMEA, or even DACH, that you're getting into.
might be. Tina can answer this afterwards. So we see that a lot of teams speak that they are trying to be agile, so they do Scrum, they do Kanban, as many are saying, yeah, we have Jira, now we're agile. But basically the whole project management and project scoping and backlog management is still waterfall. So it's not working together because the teams want to do the projects on an agile manner, and the project leader want to do a project today like this and tomorrow like this, and it's not going to work. I'm not sure if
I
this
think
is the same.
it does happen that way in the US as well. And you know, when you're talking about an agile transformation and you get started talking about tooling, this is where the DevOps piece really comes into play. And that is, at least in the States, undervalued.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, the culture is the first place to start if you're going to practice DevOps, and if there's not an agile culture in the company, it's kind of hard to deliver fast and deploy code fast if you can't sprint fast. So yeah, absolutely.
I think it goes all hand in hand. So as I mentioned, teams start now to be agile, but if they're not applying DevOps methodology, it's not working for them. And the same way, if the management is not applying DevOps rules, it's not working.
The stage gates of failure.
Yeah.
Is there anyone here that would be able to tell us about them facing challenges in implementing Agile? Anyone up for speaking out? Wanting to speak out? Or maybe another partner here that has faced this with a customer, perhaps? No?
So
Okay, it's going to be your one and only pass
Need more drinks.
for audience participation.
Yeah, sure.
We years and years ago I worked in a team, and we were struggling a little bit with velocity. We were also struggling with not working together. We're all very cooperative with one another, but sort of getting the best out of us as a group. And we tried initially ourselves to adopt Agile, and we struggled with it. I think the main reason why is we just took to the internet, as you do. You go to Google, what is Agile, what does that do? Scrum, that looks great. We'll have some stand-ups, throw that in there. We'll have some retrospectives, throw that in there. We didn't really know a lot about what we were doing. It's not that it didn't go well, but at the time we thought we were doing very well. And then it wasn't until later down the track where we had some outside help, where we actually had Agile transformation experts coming into the team, and we were like, oh wow, actually we did it completely wrong. And it was such a transformative difference having someone outside the team, not just because of the knowledge they brought, but because they were impartial to the team. So like they didn't know us as people, and like, oh, that person does that thing and that person does that thing. it really brought in a breath of fresh air. So
Yeah,
I shared.
I think one of the biggest struggles to what you just said is the requirements themselves. And I said it today, where most companies are focused on features and timelines or or release times. And today, to be innovative, you need to be focused on the value that you're delivering to the customer. So if you don't have a good value stream coming from the product owners and the folks that are kind of designing and listening to the user, you may be building and deploying the wrong things and not delivering value. So.
And that's from today's keynote. Remember the wheel with all the little pieces and the 3 segments?
And I didn't see the keynote today, so.
It's really about making sure that those folks who are writing those requirements, doing the design docs, or staying hand in hand close every day, every week, every month with the developers who are writing the code, with the group that's doing the DevOps. If it's a different group, you get really good at this stuff. You're all able to do it together, mostly, sometimes at least. So it's really about making sure you get all of those pieces and parts of your SDLC working together in as seamless a manner as possible. And sometimes that does in fact take an outside ear and eye to come in with a fresh perspective to go, hey, have you thought of?
Or experience, because all these frameworks which are existing, usually you can find a lot of talks about them, you can read a lot about them, but without reading all the stuff behind it, the books out of the 70s, 80s, 90s, you're facing challenges, and then you need to try to solve it, and probably you do a mistake and do it again and again. And that's why you think you're doing good, but at the end, from outside, you look, oh no, this is not good. So changes of scope is one very often primary focus here, which we see which fails in agile transformations.
And looking at the next question that somehow feeds into this, how much do you think that enterprises still think about, how much do enterprises still think that implementing Agile is about the tool rather than about the people and the culture, and perhaps the change that needs to come along? Mike, would you maybe want to give us some input on that, or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the majority of, and I'm not saying anything bad about our customers, maybe some of you are here, they are looking to solve problems with tools, and we always redirect back to check, and we do like assessments and things like that around the culture, particularly around DevOps, because again, you can't really implement a cloud strategy or new branching strategies around the tooling and configuring to deploy code or deploy applications to the cloud without first being able to deliver value. And what is that value? It's the Agile piece. It's the culture. It's how the company works together. It's how the team dynamics are. Team dynamics are extremely important. I said today that teams are not just developers. There are developers, there are DevOps people, security people. We have DevSecOps people on some of our teams. And even with some of our customers, a lot of our consultants will become part of the team and play various roles to help them along in developing that culture.
Yeah, they put it tool first, transformations, that's even a thing, it's really not, but tool first, and the tool's gonna be the silver bullet, is still very, very, very predominant in North America, which is a little strange, because we've been at this a few extra years beyond other countries and regions in the world. But it's still very predominant, especially when you talk about the above the team level, bringing together the teams of teams and the enterprise strategy and your portfolio management. Everybody comes back to, oh, we gotta get a tool for that. We need a tool for a tool. And that's the last good resort ever. Don't go that way. What they end up finding is then you end up with people fighting the tool, fighting the framework, whatever framework happens to be chosen, and we know the one that gets the worst bad mouthing in the space without saying its name. It's the framework's fault, it's the tool's fault, No, it's the fault of not taking a holistic approach and trying to find a silver bullet to fast track it. There's no such thing as a silver bullet in DevOps or transformation. And I know my tools friend here is gonna argue with me on that one. Give a different perspective.
Yeah, but I have a question to you, Alex. I mean, it's not like we haven't experienced customers that go against our recommendation. I mean, I know for a fact in a case, from a case where we implemented Jira Align with the customer that wanted the tool first before going through the change in people and culture and the transformation internally. I mean, you know, that customer was in the fintech sector. That customer was going heavily against our advice. I mean, Alex, maybe you can give some insight into it, anonymously, obviously. But then, how did that fail for them in that initial stage, and how do they have to now revamp?
Yeah, basically, as Tina said, this company wanted to grow very fast, right? And they know that they are lacking structure and processes, and they thought if they would have a tool, the tool would guide them to work in better processes. So they started this journey, and the person who ordered this tool actually was not part of the project anymore. Very interesting setup. Basically, as Tina said, everyone was fighting against us in every way. So even the tool was not able to fulfill the current process, wonder why. And even if we would say, hey, this is the right process to execute, they said, no, this is not how we want not to work. So we need to do a lot of things to convince them to change something, but at the end, they were simply not mature enough in processes to have a tool guiding and implementing these processes they need to have at a certain stage.
Was that, what, I'm very intrigued by what the culture at that organization was like. Were they just completely adverse to process in general?
They had no real processes. They
So
struggled.
that's yes.
Not even they had not even a team. So basically, they have projects by customers, and then they found people with specific skill set to deliver it.
Water everywhere and not a drop to drink is
Yeah,
what we call that.
Yeah, the other problem is where we get called in many times is once you have different senior level execs and stuff that come in and they're kind of religious about the tools they've used in the past. And so as the management changes, they'll bring in different frameworks and different tools and beliefs, and they're very passionate about that. So we get in the middle of these, these kind of battles, so to speak, and usually what ends up happening is they're fragmented. So we call it tools fragmentation. They've got stuff everywhere, and that's a big part of what we do. We come in and we kind of help them really get onto more of a standard way of thinking, which then leads to a standard kind of platform, not just in DevOps, but in Agile tooling as well, and issue tracking and monitoring and everything. But it is a struggle, and I've been there on both sides of the fence, and during any digital transformation, that's probably the biggest thing that we work on, is to figure out how to get them off of certain things and onto better things, and kind of get their culture around that.
And Mike, do you think the Agile Manifesto is still relevant? I mean, 20 years old.
I was going to quote a movie. I'll quote the movie, but you won't know what the movie is. But I admire its purity. The movie is Alien, when they were talking about the thing that clings onto the face, but the alien creature. But no, I think it is still great, and I like the simplicity of it, and I think that's kind of the way I work. I like to keep things simple and follow repeatable and proven patterns, and I think if everyone went back to the manifesto and kind of read it again, they would realize that they're probably making some mistakes.
And please read the principles behind it, not just the 4 bullet points on the front page of the website.
I know everything about it now.
For me, coming from the strategy and business side, I've been fighting the battle of, oh, well, it says it's for software development. still very relevant. Getting the business side beyond those 3 words is an interesting dynamic that happens in every organization. Once you get them trying Scrum or Kanban, and don't say, this is all about the manifesto here. Let's just keep it simple. Basic foundational principles apply. The mindset starts to shift and evolve, and you start seeing really, truly magical things happening where now the business is not blaming the technical side. The tech folks are not sitting there going, but you said you wanted the button azure blue, that's azure blue. And the business side's going, no, I wanted hex number #3492. You gave me 91. Yes, that's a true story that's really happened. One story, stayed in 6 sprints, 6 consecutive sprints, just over a hex decimal position of 1 color number of blue off. And back to the business side, went again back to the basic principles of Scrum. What's good enough? What's the most value? Of course, we had to explain the whole premise that everybody's computer screen is not the same hue of colors. To get past that, those are the kind of conversations that Scrum really, the manifesto really helps you get past with the fighting between business and the blaming between business and technologies, especially in legacy organizations.
Now,
Speaking of old books, because you looked at us when you mentioned old books from the 80s and 70s. The original Ken Schwaber books and all those books, they're still relevant today.
Very much.
So, the principles work.
well, you say they're relevant. Now, my question to Alex is, 20 years ago, you were 10 years old. What do you think?
Fun fact is, today I had a talk about OKRs, and Tina is making me also reading a lot of old books. For my terms old, don't get me wrong. So OKRs are coming from the 70s. Lean is coming from the 40s. And there's actually a very interesting story. So in one of these books, it describes how Lean was developed with Toyota somewhere in the 40s. It took the US 30 years to learn, to write it, and to adapt it to the American market. So basically, they lost 30 years implementing this. So based on this example, I would say 20 years for this simple 5 bullet points is not enough to really implement it in companies. And I would say a lot of German companies say they are agile, but they are not. So they're still relevant, still not really applied, still a lot of room for improvement.
And ironically enough, it was a German American that went to Japan and taught this lean thing to the automotive manufacturers there. Go Germany! Yes.
So when we think about it, it's been around for a while, right? And we can see that change and transformation takes time and patience, right? And it needs to be, from what you guys said, it needs to be nourished and led by leaders that support the motion of transformation. We often see organizations wanting to change from one day to another. We got to do this, we got to have this change because this year, this financial year, or we need to have a look at it in a bit of a longer scope, right? We shouldn't just look at that one financial year. If we're talking about a transformation, a cultural change in which people have developed habits, I believe from what you guys have said and what I've experienced, one really does need to have patience and support that transformational change because we can't ask someone to change the way they work from one day to another.
How many of you in the room have either been a part of in a company or heard from peers where the company said, we're gonna do a transformation and we're gonna get it done this year? Yeah, lots of fingers in the room popping up and hands popping up. Yeah, good luck with that. If your company is more than 10 people, it's not gonna happen in a year. Okay, maybe 100 can do it in a year.
Yes, so coming to the topic of flexibility, So Agile methodology emphasizes on flexibility and adaptability, which is increasingly important, right? And in today's rapidly changing business environment, it's even more important. Would you guys be able to give us some insight on what you guys think about it? What are the major points that one needs to focus on that?
As far as what, the agile methodology?
Yeah.
Well, I think usually what happens is there's some existing culture that exists, and I think breaking free of that is the step number one. And generally speaking, even in the classic books, it talks about kind of realigning roles and responsibilities and taking classic project managers and turning them into product owners and getting the senior management involved and ready to make change culturally across the company. And then that starts to trickle down to the teams and then arranging strategies and the team dynamics and self-managed teams and being able to sprint at a certain cadence, getting the value into the sprints, and then comes the DevOps piece. So
I think in addition to that, it's especially when you're looking at an at-scale model, finding a framework is great. Choosing a framework is great. Regardless of the framework that is chosen, it's important to apply some human intelligence. Don't try to do everything that's on the website for the individual framework, because no, even the creators say don't try it all. Certainly don't try it all at once. Keep it simple and keep your messaging consistent.
yeah, you should be able to sprint without tools. If you can do that, then you can use any tool.
I mean, back then we didn't have many tools, right?
Yeah, back then we didn't have tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had sticky notes on walls. Then came the string, which I still hate. Unless I'm knitting a blanket, I don't want to see yarn in my workplace. Thanks. Yeah, I think with the real dynamic around the, if I'm in and I'm coaching and working with teams just starting their agile journey, if the entire team is actually co-located, they all sit in the same spot, the same office, the same room. The Post-it notes on the wall is fantastic to build up that muscle memory, getting folks understanding how to really do Scrum or Kanban for that matter. These days I don't see very much of that at all. Post-COVID, flexible work environments, people can work on different schedules, come to the office, not come to the office, and a lot of companies are starting to hire for the need, not the location. You guys experiencing that here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
distributed
Yeah, so
teams.
the
yeah.
distribution of the teams is really where, if you have that situation, the tools become absolutely invaluable to helping them coalesce around their process and what they need to do as a team, rather than an individual sitting in the corner with his cat on his keyboard.
And the culture becomes even more important. I've seen it with different companies where you're in a lot of Zoom meetings throughout the day, you get Zoom fatigue and you feel dislocated from the agenda. And it can be kind of a weird place to be as an individual that works for a large company. So the culture and the way that you can collaborate remotely is really important these days.
Alex, I'd like to, before I ask you I'd like to ask you something. Sounded weird, you too. Yeah. What are some of the best objections that you have heard when implementing Agile or DevOps? I mean, we've got this one customer. We've been trying to help them transformation. We've been helping this customer for many years now. Can you share some of the best objections or excuses?
We work differently is maybe the easiest one, and all of you have heard this, because we are special is the second excuse they have, and we have always done it like this, and it works. Yeah.
Check. Fail.
So I would say they're the top 3.
Yeah. They're pretty good ones. I wouldn't have expected you to name this, but very obvious, but yeah.
There's a company in the US that I started working with in their 7th year of their transformation. Hold on to that 7-year thing. I was there 2.5 years. They chose 4 different frameworks in that time, brought in an army of coaches with no consistency in how to coach, what was being coached. There were actually 4 different flavors of Scrum being taught and coached because that team was really special. That team was super special. And that team, well, that's the way we've always done it, and we get stuff done. Absolute catastrophic attempt at implementing anything closely related or not even resembling. I can't say that with a straight face, because that does not resemble Agile in any way. They are now, see, that was 2012. They're still trying the same things because they are special. They're in a heavily regulated financial services industry. And on my last count, they're up to 237 million US in penalties and fines. Because they've thrown away what they should be doing and kept the special and the really super special.
But Tina, you were saying they're in their 7th year of transformation, but they're basically going round in circles from what I
They consider it a continuous transformation.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was getting at, right?
Right.
So ideally, once a certain stage of a transformation is reached, I see transformation continuously developing.
Yeah, once you get that culture shifted and people start deliberately looking at how they're working, how they can continue to improve what they're doing and deliver better value to the customers in a quicker way, it becomes a cultural norm. And transformation is at that point not really what they're doing. It's they're getting better. They're crushing their competitors in the market space. Is it still transforming? Yeah. But it becomes part of the culture. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, everybody?
Tina and me had this discussion, I think, 2 weeks ago.
They spent the last 3 weeks together, by the way.
Yeah.
How can you?
About business agility, and we figured out that business agility is a goal a company wants to achieve, and basically based on your definition, which I like, agility means adaptive possibilities, that you can change and adapt to whatever is happening. And this actually makes a lot of sense to explain it like this, because in every agile framework, you have the continuous improvement thing. So you measure what you did and you figure out how you can improve. With your example, this special team, I don't think they have the improvement step found yet. But basically, and one proof why this is important, look at every framework, you find version 1, 2, 3, 4, you count up them, right? So because the environment is changing, the people are changing, the tools are changing, technology is changing, so the process need to support these people to keep up with all these changes and continuously improve them.
And I think DevOps is one of those areas that really hits that.
Well,
quicker
that's
than other
where
areas.
that's where you can really feel the pain. If the culture has shifted. We've got an airline customer. They've got just close to 200 dev teams, and they've definitely had the culture shift. They've moved to cloud, and they're kind of making all the right moves, so to speak. But they can't deploy fast enough because, and you may have read about the airlines over the holidays, but they can't deploy fast enough because of all those teams. They're at different maturity levels from a DevOps perspective and an architecture perspective of their applications, different technologies. And it's very difficult to move that many teams that are so fragmented onto better architecture and frameworks that basically work with their transformation and where they're at today, which is based on AWS and Kubernetes and Docker. So it's a challenge, culture first, but at some point you're going to run into the real problem, which is being able to deploy as fast as you can, take in value, and having real-time feedback mechanisms, and being able to deploy fast enough to be responsive to those.
How many of your organizations practice Scrum or Kanban today?
You mean us as organization or customer organization?
Oh, both?
Both.
I mean, you guys are pretty big. How many employees does VA have?
2,500. One department, Agile software development department, is really doing Agile.
Not the best call.
You know,
Is that the specialty?
A lot is, like I say, as a customer project, you do the staffing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in open space concept, so
Yeah.
you can participate in the project with the customer, then you are part of the project, and if you are done with the customer, then you are part of the next customer, next project. So,
Different project team entirely now.
sorry?
Moves to a different team. Yeah. So one of the cool things in the whole Agile transformation is teaching people to work differently. Really setting them up as dedicated teams that stay together. Teaching them to do Scrum or Kanban, and giving them appropriate tools to get to DevOps, and that all works really well on an individual team level. This particular airline, that's a different story for a different day, but this particular airline, as they were going through their transformation, and they have done a brilliant job changing the mindset around software delivery there. What they didn't consider was their underlying infrastructure. And every one of the frameworks that's out there that talks about scaling Agile talks about the features and enhancements that need to be made around your architecture and your infrastructure to allow you to deliver faster. I can't tell you the number of Agile transformations that I have seen, witnessed, heard about, where they've never even thought about those things. And the very instant, and this is gonna sound familiar to a couple people in the room, the very instant that someone from architecture says, hey, we need to put in this enabler feature this quarter or this month in order to do other things, and then the business goes, no, I can't have my new feature. I need my new feature now. Why do you need that new feature now? Well, because I want it. But if we don't do that, you're not gonna get the other 4 features. I don't care, I want it now. So that's where the leadership mindset has to come into play there, so that when the architects come in the room and they go, we need to focus on this architecture problem, they don't end up getting that stuff pushed away, pushed to the ground, and have a catastrophic event at holiday flying peak season that costs them millions and millions and millions of dollars. So just keep that in mind as you're working with your customers, your companies, and going through transformation. It truly is a holistic thing.
Now, all of you probably know the various frameworks we have, Agile at Scale, whether it's Spotify, Less, Safe, or many of the others. Tina, would you be able to tell me what the advantages of, for example, implementing the Safe framework is?
Well, I think from my perspective, one of the biggest values of implementing the SAFE framework is the fact that it is so well documented. They reference these things, like Alex mentioned, he's got, something like 80 years worth of reading to catch up on in the next 2 months. All of these processes that are proven to work really, really well. They've been around for a long time, but at least prior to some of these frameworks coming out with the documentation and stuff. You found a pocket here that knew about that one, and a pocket there that knew about that one. The magic is when you bring them together. So by way of example, pick on the Scaled Agile framework. Gets a bad rap. It's a lot of really, really great practices all brought together in a way to show you can use this technique that's proven works here, this technique that's proven and works here. The documentation is kept up to date. There's solid referenceable articles out there, solid referenceable books out there. Some of the others, for example, if you were to go and Google Spotify scaling model, go ahead, pull your phones onto it. You'll get a picture of what Spotify used way back in 2012, 14. It's not what the Spotify model looks like today. That's not what they have deployed today. So finding the documentation, being able to have a singular referenceable place that people can go and self-educate, get some more information about why I need to care about running a stand-up or an inspect and adapt. Why do I need to bother with continuously delivering in this DevOps thing?
Well, I'll have one last question before we wrap up, and possibly have a couple of minutes for some questions that might have arisen. Mike, some people claim DevOps is dead. Do you think that's true?
No, but I do think people use the word DevOps in a lot of different ways that don't always work out. But no, it's not dead. You can't be, in business today, in this digital world, without practicing some form of DevOps and deploying your applications to the cloud. It's just you couldn't maneuver fast enough. So it's alive and well. As a matter of fact, it's confusing and fragmented. There's so many platforms out there, and that's one of the things that Venue DevOps hopes to do, is be a platform that is transparent and not tedious and confusing to use, and we hope to make it into a product that provides that clarity. If you do DevOps today, there's a lot of moving parts depending on which cloud you choose, AWS, Google, GKE, or Azure, and to deploy applications in containers and run them in clusters is not exactly the easiest thing to do with so many technologies: Terraform, Lambda, serverless, Kubernetes. For teams to really focus on value, dev teams to focus on value, they really shouldn't have to think about the complexities of the operations part. And that's really where Venue is focused. We hope to help that out by providing them with a platform that allows them to almost drag and drop and form configure their deployments to whatever cloud they choose, and it could be multiple clouds.
Small ad. Add Mike on LinkedIn so you can be kept updated, or subscribe to the Adaptavist Group's mailing list, and then
Yeah, demos coming. Yeah.
latest
Demos
info coming in soon. Or speak to him after the talk. There'll be enough time. Then one last thing where I'd like all three of you to give a recommendation as a starting point for companies interested in implementing DevOps or Agile at Scale. Maybe Alex, you can start on Agile at Scale. Your recommendation?
There are two things you should do from my side. First, you need to get management buy-in, so you should involve them, train them. I mean, really train them what Agile is about and what you're trying to do, and then go to your team and also explain to them what you're going to do, and then this is a good fundament to start your journey.
What he said.
Okay.
The only thing I would add in there is, and now it's adding a third thing, make sure that your leadership team, C-level all the way down to your individual line managers, have the same talking points and the same communication cadences. Bad communication does more damage than not having a plan at all.
What was the question?
Mike needs another Prosecco.
Serious question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What would you recommend as a starting point for companies interested in implementing DevOps?
Oh, okay. That's a tough question. Yeah, start with the culture first, then focus on team dynamics, and then really take a look at how you can, whether you're doing Ruby on Rails or Java development or whatever, figure out how you can package your applications up and use and leverage infrastructure as code, so you can deploy fast and repeatable, and interlace your containers, scanning and security and all that while you're building and deploying DevOps.
All right, thanks for that. Some good recommendations there, right? Write them all up. So anyone here with a question for these three? I mean, we've got some three experts up here that can answer any questions that is burning inside of you that you want to have solved.
Can also be challenging questions.
Yeah, sneaky questions are the best.
We can wrestle.
Just some thoughts on this, Tina. Do you think that the movements like working out loud and delivering structures and the evolvement of new work the past 5 to 10 years are helping us come to this agile management?
I'm gonna move to you because I'm old and I have bad hair and I can't hear you.
I can speak louder as well. So, do you think that the movements like working out loud, delivering structures are helping implementing agile at scale?
Mostly, yes. The areas where I think that those cause a problem, much like, safe gets bashed a lot, right? If people have only read the website or read the book and then they're gonna start trying to practice it or teach somebody else how to do it, and they don't understand it, they've got no experience in it, it becomes detrimental. You bring somebody in that actually gets the premise behind the communication techniques that those are really all about, it can help tremendously. Did that help?
Yeah, I just want to hear about your thoughts because you said if you want to implement Agile at scale, you're coming from the management buy-in, and especially working out loud is a grassroots movement.
Yeah.
So it's from the opposite way.
Yeah, as long as it's understood. I knew the company that Mike referenced, right? They were an AgileCraft customer, an AgileCraft early adopter.
Yeah.
Their whole Agile at Scale movement was grassroots. The organization that started that effort, they did everything right. They brought in coaches, they brought in trainers, they taught people how to do Scrum, how to do Kanban. Just a couple of tiny details like their Jira setup that later caused them a pretty catastrophic problem. And then Mike and his team went in and helped them with that. Bottoms up grassroots efforts work. As long as your management teams are okay with it. I've seen others where, other companies where they started it as a grassroots effort, and the instant somebody with a VP or higher in their title found out about it, people were getting fired, people were getting written up and sent to HR. So that's what we mean by getting your management buy-in. Even if it's just a, hey, we want to experiment with this thing called Agile. Get the buy-in. You have both good and bad Agile transformations that start from the bottom up and from the top down. Getting buy-in from both ends to move forward and do something new to produce better results is what we're really saying. Does that?
Does that answer? All right, so we're gonna wrap this session up.